I really like the guide from Cohere on prompt engineering. They have a really nice, it's reasonably short sort of like intro to like the main principles of prompt engineering, which I find quite useful. The first main principle that they list is a prompt guides the model to generate useful output. That's kind of what we already said. The second principle that they talk about is try multiple formulations of your prompt to get the best generations. So one kind of general principle here is that some experimentation, I think, is needed. And in certain cases, you might even need multiple prompts to accomplish your hoped for outcome, right? Like it may not just be one prompt that creates useful output for you in your application, but you might need to cycle through multiple prompts or chain multiple prompts together. And you very likely need to experiment with the format of those prompts to get the best generation. So that's kind of like part of this prompt engineering is doing a bit of that exploratory prompt engineering. Maybe I just coined that term. Maybe I should trademark that.
There you go, a little TM at the bottom. Okay.
Instead of EDA, exploratory data analysis, exploratory prompt engineering.
Is there any guidance that you've come across in terms of how to structure prompts if you're doing multiple prompts to hone it versus one that's trying to do that, or whether there's two or three? And have you seen anything that kind of gives us some guidance on how we might think about it?
This definitely gets to, I think, the third principle from Cohere, and one that I'll emphasize from another source too, which is describe the task and the general setting. So the way that Cohere describes this, it's often useful to include additional components of the task description. Naturally, then these tend to come after the input text we're trying to process. So another good resource here, which we'll link in our show notes, is actually a lecture from Elvis Savaria from Dare AI with slides online as well. And he has this nice picture in his slides, if you look up his slides, where he kind of gives the elements of a typical prompt. So the way you can think about a typical prompt for a language model is with instructions, context, input data, and an output indicator. So the instructions are like you telling the model what you want to happen. So the example that's given here is classify the text into neutral, negative, or positive. So like they're trying to do some type of sentiment analysis, right? Classify the text into neutral, negative, or positive. And maybe there's some like context, additional context that you give around that. Then there's input data, which is like classify the text into neutral, negative, positive. And then you say text, there it is. So like there's my text, there's my input data. And then you provide an output indicator. So sentiment, and that's where you expect there to be an auto completion of sentiment, right? Like if you set up everything right, hopefully you get either neutral, negative, or positive. So you've described the task, you've provided your input data, and then you've provided an output indicator. So that's kind of a way in Cohere's language, what they talk about as describing the task and the general setting. But I like how you could think about this as instructions, input data, and output indicator.